Hello everyone. I think there might be some people just logging on now. I'm going to wait a little bit of time, just till 2 o'clock, and then we can get going. Okay, it's 2 o'clock, so I'm going to start now. Hello, and welcome to Earth Live Sessions. I hope everyone is doing really well today. I'm Jasper Hamlet, and I'm going to talk to you today about nurdles and the Great Nurdle Hunt, which is a beach survey which allows people across the world to take part and map the presence of these so-called nurdles on beaches across the world. So hopefully today I'm going to just talk through what nurdles are, and hopefully today we'll learn a little bit about what they are, what the problem is, and how you guys can take part. So I've put a couple of links in the description, so feel free to click on those, follow us on social media, but also there's a quiz that we've put up on our news site, which you can complete now during the session or afterwards. So firstly, let me just say a massive thank you to Lizzie Daly for putting together these whole amazing Earth Live series, but also for inviting us and me from the Great Nurdle Hunt to talk to you and to take part in these sessions over the last few days. So yeah, thanks very much, and I hope you enjoy. So just to start off with nurdles, does anyone know what a nurdle is? So feel free at any point to put that in, and we'll come, hopefully by the end of this session you will, but it's a strange word, right? Okay, anyway, let's start. So as you can see, I am here streaming from my living room here in Edinburgh in Scotland, as at the moment, as all of us are, we're all cooped up inside, but hopefully let's get a little bit comfortable, just relax, and hopefully you can learn a little bit today. So please do just ask questions as you go through this, and I'll try and answer them. And if you can't hear me or something like this, let me know, and I'll try and speak a little bit more clearly. But hopefully things go well. So what am I doing here? So I'll give you a little bit of information about me and myself, and then we'll move on to the topic of nurdles. So as I said, my name is Jasper. I work for an environmental charity called Fidra, and we're based here in Scotland. And we work on various different environmental issues and how to prevent them. So and we look at all different things, so from plastic pollution, things like little bits of plastic that come off plastic sports pitches, all the way through to our plastic coffee cups and things like that. So we're looking at issues like this, but we're also looking at issues about like chemicals, so chemicals on our plastic packaging. And but the main thing that we work on, or the project that I work on, is the Great Nurdle Hunt, and this is looking at plastic pollution in the form of nurdles, which I'll go on to in a little bit in a moment. We've got a great question from Instagram just to cut in here. So, are nurdles found on all beaches across the world? Well, hopefully you'll find that answer out in a minute. And in fact, I think it is pretty widespread, but maybe you could have a think and guess, or try and make an estimate of how many beaches you think actually nurdles have been found on our Great Nurdle Hunt map. And I'll come back to that at the end of the session, and we'll be able to give you the answer. So great question, and hopefully by the end of the session you'll know a little bit more. So yes, but just to say, before I worked here and before I worked with the Great Nurdle Hunt, I studied marine biology at university, and then worked at a number of other environmental organisations, including the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, getting people involved in nature, and other charities looking at getting people out and active and doing some cycling. But enough about me. Let's get on to the topic of nurdles. So does anyone know what a nurdle is? If you do, put your comment in the box and let me know if you think you know what a nurdle is. But it's a bit of a strange word, and not so many people know what they are. But in fact, they are tiny little bits of plastic called plastic pellets. And I might refer to them as nurdles or pellets as we go through this chat. But they're actually, in fact, the raw materials of all our plastic products. So by raw materials, I mean the building blocks, the things that then make up our plastic products. So if we were to make a cake, it would be, the raw material might be flour and eggs and milk and some other ingredients. And they're the raw materials of a cake. So the raw materials of a plastic bottle or a laptop, like I'm talking to you today, are nurdles. So I've got some nurdles here. And I don't know if you can see them there. Lots of tiny little bits of plastic. So you can sort of see there's quite a few in there. And they're all sort of different colors. So we've got black one in there. We've got some blue ones. And we've got quite a lot of clear, or these ones look a little bit old, like they've been a bit weathered and been around a bit, so they've turned a bit yellow. So they're what we call microplastics. So these nurdles are in fact a microplastic. And so you might have heard of this term, a microplastic, as a bit of plastic that's been out in the ocean and it's broken up and broken and into smaller and smaller little bits, and it's become something called a microplastic. Well, these nurdles, they start their lives as microplastic already. So they're already tiny, and to be a microplastic, it has to be below 5 mil. So I'll get one out and show you just how tiny they actually are. Here we go. So I'll make sure not to drop it because they are tiny and really hard to pick up. So you can see, I don't know if you can see that in the camera. That's how tiny they are. These little, this one's a blue one. They're really, really tiny. So a lot of these make up things. So maybe you can guess, I'll ask you a question, how many of these tiny nurdles make up one plastic bottle, like a drinking bottle? Put your answer in the comments there if you want. But these tiny little things, they're very lightweight, they're very small, and they can be lots of different colors. We've got a great question here. Why are they different colors? So imagine if you want a black laptop, you might need a black nurdle to make that plastic into a product that's black. So what happens is these nurdles start off quite clear, and they might get transported to another company, and that company might add different chemicals and colorings to make that pellet into a different color, because then those different colored pellets will go to another company who will then turn it into their plastic product. So this little milk bottle here, this empty one that I've used, has got a green lid. So that green lid would have been made up of loads of tiny little nurdles that were all green, whereas the clear plastic here would have been lots of clear nurdles. So that's why they have different colors, because we want different colors for our different products. So that's why they're different colors. So nurdles are basically the raw material. Think of something else. Think of a different plastic product, like maybe something in your phone or the case around your computer game or anything. All the plastic products start their lives out as these tiny little nurdles or pellets. Okay, so that's what nurdles are. Tiny little bits of plastic that are used to make all our plastic products. But why are they a problem? Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit now about the problem. So unfortunately, these plastic pellets, obviously because of their size and their tiny sort of nature, they can be spilt by industry. So they can be spilt in a place where they're produced, or at any point when these pellets are handled. So these pellets might be put in a big plastic bag, and lots of plastic bags are stacked up on a pallet, and they're put in a truck, and those trucks are then driven to another company. And at all these different stages where these bags are moved and where these pellets are handled, these nurdles might be spilt onto the floor or into a truck. And sometimes people might wash them out of the truck or spray them and hose them down in a factory, and they'll eventually go into some drains. And if those drains haven't got filters on and the procedures aren't in place to stop these pellets getting out into the environment, the nurdles can be washed into the drains and eventually make their way all the way down into our rivers and out into our oceans. And this is obviously not great. So these pellets can be lost at all different stages of this plastic supply chain. And these plastics, where these plastics are moved, and they make their way into the ocean. Now, Obviously, this isn't great because when plastic's in the marine environment, as most of you will probably know by now, it doesn't go away. Like all plastics, nurdles stay in the environment for hundreds, possibly thousands of years, depending on the type of plastic. And obviously, they're really tiny, and so they're really difficult to move and remove from the ocean or the beaches. So if they're not cleaned up at the industry side, then they can make their way into the environment. Now, if you head onto our website, you can actually look at a map, and it sort of shows you all the different stages that these pellets can be lost. So it's quite an interesting, complex. It's a very complex situation where lots of different people are involved, and they can be lost. So I've got another question here that's just popped up. So I'll just answer that while I'm here. So it says, why do the pellets have to be the size to be used to manufacture things? Could they be made larger? So it's a really, really good question. And the industry probably has thought of this, and they've thought of different ways of moving pellets around. But in fact, the smaller these pellets are, is actually, I think it's more cost effective and easy to maneuver. So they can hose these pellets out of silos, out of the trucks, from the trucks into big silos, or and they use them to connect up to different silos so that these pellets can be pumped into a machine, which then pulls all the different types of pellets together and forms the product. So plastic can also be moved around in sheeting, and so that is something that happens, but majority of the production and transport is in this pelletized form, and that's potentially something to do with the historical formation of the industry, but it's now a worldwide way of moving these pellets is in these pelletized forms. So yeah, inherently a difficult form of raw material because they're so small. Okay, so where are we? So we're at the issue where these pellets are spilt, and they enter our oceans and they're in our environment and they're difficult to remove. So the question is, why are they a problem when they're in the sea? So like lots of other plastics, they can break up and get smaller, but they can be mistaken for food by the marine wildlife that inhabits our oceans and our sort of marine environments. If you look a little bit closely, I'll hold these up again, they actually can look a little bit like fish eggs or little bits of food. So things particularly like seabirds that are flying down, skimming the surface of the water or diving down to get little bits of food, they can mistake these for little bits of food and eat them. And in fact, this is quite an interesting fact. Studies at the moment have shown more than around 220 different marine species have been shown to ingest plastic debris. Not all of them might have ingested nurdles, but that's a lot of different species in the marine environment ingesting bits of plastic. So nurdles are no different. And in fact, they're already small and can be mistaken for food quite easily. And obviously, like other plastics, once these plastics are in the stomachs of other animals, they can cause things like ulcerations or making sores in the stomach, which can lead to things like this animal feeling full and leading to things like starvation and even death, which is obviously extremely unfortunate and not great for the animal. And if you head onto our website again, you can actually see a number of other different animals that have ingested nurdles, and you can have a little look there. But they've been found in the stomachs of fish, turtles, and a lot of seabirds. The other thing I haven't mentioned here is the toxicness of these pellets. So once plastic is in the marine environment, it can adsorb and attract chemicals and persistent organic pollutants, so chemicals that are already in the environment from a different source, and they can concentrate them onto the out surface of the plastic pellets, which makes them more dangerous for animals when they do eat them. And those toxic chemicals can then be transferred into the animals. And as I say, over time, these plastics don't go away. So it's a big, big issue. So how big is this issue? I realize I'm running on a little bit of time here, so I'll give you a quick sort of intro into how big the problem is. So actually, there's quite another interesting fact. So about 350 million tons of plastic was produced in 2018 across the whole world. So that was more than the whole weight of the whole human population put together. So that's a lot of plastic. And obviously, all that plastic starts off in this form. So that's a lot of plastic nurdles moving around the world. In Europe alone, that's about 60,000 companies interacting in the plastics industry, and they produce about 60 million tons of plastic nurdles. And that's billions and billions of nurdles. So I remember I asked the question, how many little pellets do you think make one plastic bottle? So if you've got any answers, put that in the comment box. But in fact, it's actually a lot less than you think. But there's billions and billions of these pellets floating around the world now. So, and in the UK, these losses add up to about 35 tankers full of pellets entering our oceans every year. Not just one tanker being poured in, but from all the different stages, pellets can be spilt, and it makes up to around 35 tankers full of pellets. So, and once they're in there, as I said, they stay for a long time, possibly hundreds of years. And these ocean currents, once they're out and these pellets are in there, they're moving around, and these pellets can wash up on our beaches. And this is where the Great Nurdle Hunt comes in, and where you guys can take part. So I've had some people ask a few questions here now around the number of pellets in this little jar. So I'll come back to that at the end. Some good guesses, but I'll come back to that at the end. So how can you get involved in what is the Great Nurdle Hunt? Well, as I said, these pellets, when they're in the ocean, are floating around, and some of them wash up onto our beaches. Now, you can help us, and lots of people have already taken part in the Great Nurdle Hunt by heading down to a local beach and looking for these nurdles. And once they've found these nurdles, you can count how many you found, and then you can let us know by adding this number onto our website. On our website, you can drag and drop a pin to your exact location on the beach, and then that lets us know exactly where these nurdles have been found, and that helps us map where these nurdles are across the world, and provides really good evidence for us to go and speak to people in industry and say, hey, look, this problem that's happening, these pellets that are spilling from factories and from the plastics industry that you're part of are washing up on our beaches, and here's this map that all these people have done and taken part and shown evidence of this pollution problem. So I'm going to give you a few tips to get out and hunt for these plastic nurdles. Obviously at the moment the times are a little bit strange, and we're all stuck indoors in our house. So maybe now's not the time to go and hunt for nurdles, unless you're one day a week, one time in the day that you're allowed to go out and have your exercise. You can, if you're heading to the beach already, you can maybe take part then. But I've got a few tips for when you do get a chance to head out and do a nurdle hunt. First one is, we don't actually ask you to collect them, because it's really, really difficult and it can take a lot of time. If you want to collect them, great, do. But the most important thing to remember is the number that you found and the time that you took collecting them, so you can then upload them. If you do head out to collect them, a few little bits of kit is quite useful. Always wear your gloves, because remember what I said about it being a bit toxic. It's worthwhile wearing your gloves and making sure you wash your hands after. A sieve might be quite useful, especially on dry beaches, because you can put the bits of microplastic in the sand and sieve out the sand and keep the microplastic and move them away. And then a jar, which is also really useful to put the little bits of microplastic in. And then you can use that to then go around and share the nurdles that you've collected with your friends and raise awareness of the problem, which is really, really useful for us, because then people learn about the issue, and we can have more people caring about it and evidencing it and putting data on our map, which means we can all help together to help prevent this form of pollution. A couple of other things just before we go. So there's a Nurdle ID sheet on our website, which you can download, and that allows you to sort of figure out, is this a nurdle, or is it a bit of another different bit of plastic, a BB pellet or something, or is it a bio bead? But so it helps you determine whether or not it's a nurdle. Another couple of things is, when you get to the beach, get down on your hands and knees and really have a look quite carefully, because they are really tiny, and it's really worth having a look in the tide line, where the tide comes up and washes back out. Where that washes back out, that tide line is where those nurdles are going to be, in amongst the seaweed and things like that. So let's go back to how many is in here. So we've got some really, really good answers. In fact, pretty close. There is, in fact, 500 nurdles in here. So Catherine Gemmell, what a great guest there, and both Michael and Emily, brilliant. But in fact, it doesn't. I don't know. That's pretty good. I would have first guessed quite a little bit less than that, but it seems that you guys are professional, which is great. And in fact, about 600 pellets go into making one plastic bottle. So imagine the amount of plastic bottles and other plastic products. There's billions and billions of pellets used to make up those plastic products. So I'm sort of coming to the end of my time here now. So thanks so much for listening, and hopefully you learned a little bit more about nurdles. If you can't get out at the moment, why not head to our website, have a look at the different bits of information there. Get in touch with me if you've got any more questions via the contact form on our website. If you want something to do and you want a bit of an activity, why not put together a little bit of a poster to sort of raise awareness of this issue, or write something like a little bit of a poem or something like this. There's also the quiz that we've put up on our website, and the link is in the description. So thanks very much. And thanks again to Lizzie. And I'm going to log off and say goodbye. So thanks very much. And please do take part in the Great Nurdle Hunt and help us end this form of pollution. Thank you.